What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Superman Red Son, the 2020 animated movie based off the comic book of the same name. Now, Superman Red Son tells the story of what if Superman landed in the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Alright, so I'm going to briefly try and make this review as short as I possibly can. I overall thought that Superman Red Son was a really, really good animated movie. This was highly enjoyable. I liked it a lot. I have a lot I have a lot of good things to say about this, and I got some negative things to say about this. So let's get right into this. Waste no time. Overall, I thought the animation of this movie looked great. These DC movies always have a good animation style to them for the most part. They always look nice, and the animation of this movie is no different. It's got a good animation style. A lot of the fight sequences in this movie are really well done. The voice cast in this movie, as per usual, is fantastic. I really liked Jason Isaacs as Superman. I like the personality and voice he gave him, and I like the whole concept of Superman pretty much being an instrument of the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and this movie covers his relationship with Stalin and what his presence in the Cold War means on the Russian side. Like he is their nuclear deterrent to America, who pretty much doesn't have anything. And this, of course, leads to the creation of a superior man, a Superman clone that Lex Luthor, voiced by Diedrich Bader, ends up creating. Speaking of Lex Luthor in this movie, I like how they approach Lex Luthor in this movie as well. He doesn't come across as the villain that he normally is. He comes across more as a very ambitious man, you know, trying to one up the Soviet Union from a scientific standpoint. So I like how they presented Lex Luthor in this movie. It's very interesting to note that Lex Luthor in this movie is also married to Lois Lane, and they have a pretty interesting dynamic as well. Lois Lane is still a reporter for the Daily Planet, but now she's with Lex Luthor, who is this very well-known government scientist. So it's interesting. It's an interesting take on the Lex Luthor character, and I enjoyed it a lot. I thought Diedrich Bader put on a good performance, just like Jason Isaacs put on a good performance as Superman. Um, Another thing I like about this movie was the inclusion of Wonder Woman, and the movie kind of played with the idea of Wonder Woman being a bridge between the Russians and the United States. I don't think this movie did enough to further build upon that, because I think Wonder Woman being a neutral party between U.S. and the United States could have been very interesting if it was further expanded upon, and if this movie did kind of tease a moment where Wonder Woman's going to talk to Lex Luthor after he assumed the presidency of the United States, and I would have liked to have seen how that would have played out, but the movie didn't go there. Instead, Wonder Woman, who was pretty much building a friendship with Superman throughout the course of the movie, pretty much, detaches herself away from Superman after he becomes like this, pretty much this dictator who is out to just take down all his enemies. And the friendship between Lois and Superman kind of deteriorates. Now, how does Superman come to that? Get the ultimate power? Well, Superman through Lois Lane, because of Lex Luthor, finds out that Joseph Stalin was killing innocent people in gulags, and of course this leads to Superman to kill Joseph Stalin, and this ultimately leads to Superman becoming the premier of Russia, the leader of Russia, so to speak, pretty much ruling it in his own way, in his own image, which of course gives birth to this version's Batman, who is pretty much like this, anarchist. And Batman in this movie is voiced by Roger Craig Smith, who had voiced Batman previously in Arkham Origins. And now this is both a positive and a negative for me. The positive, I like the idea of an anarchist Batman in a Russian setting, going against a Superman who's pretty much like a tyrant type of character. And I thought Roger Craig Smith did a fine job with the voicing. What I don't like is that you could have done more with that. Instead, Batman kind of comes in within like the second half of this movie. He and Superman have an entertaining fight scene after Batman uses, artificial red sun to weaken Superman. But eventually, Batman ends up killing himself because he refuses to be manipulated by Superman in a way. Speaking of which, prior to that, we have the introduction of Brainiac, who is invading the Earth, and Superman kind of takes him down. But at the end of this movie, it's revealed in a twist that Brainiac was pretty much a puppet master, manipulating Superman to take the fight to the United States after failing to get the peace that Superman wanted. So the twist with Brainiac, you can see it coming, but I actually kind of like it because it plays into Brainiac's character of him wanting to just take over and just destroy the world at large, as opposed to Superman, who in his mind wants to save the world. So you got that you know, that conflict of interest between Superman and Brainiac, which is always well done if you do it the right way. And I think for the most part, in this movie story that's trying to tell, it did it the right way, with Superman in his mind thinking that his way is the right way. Then you have Brainiac in a lot of scenes kind of trying to manipulate Superman to do it in a certain different way. All the while, they're all being opposed by Lex Luthor, who, in Superman's view, is putting out that American propaganda. But of course, Luthor and Superman put their differences aside when they come together to take down Brainiac in the end. So it's kind of like, these two super nations, the U.S. and the United States, the U.S. and Russia, you know, forge an alliance to take down a more greater and deadlier threat within Brainiac, and I kind of like that. I thought that was also well handled as well, because throughout this movie, Lex is not really presented as a villain. He's presented as a morally ambitious man who means right, but but he is Lex Luthor. He's still narcissistic in his own way. But this movie also, now I know there's a lot of controversies of how this movie portrays Superman, but to me, Superman did not come across as like a villain of the week type of character. He comes across as somebody who's was ingrained into that Soviet way of thinking from the 1950s and on. So he only knows how that way. But in the movie, he does come to his senses, and he does end up saving the world along with Lex Luthor. So we do get we do get the old Superman coming shining through in this movie. Another thing I actually do like, I actually like the Superior Man character and how he is a perversion of Superman himself, fighting for truth just in the American way, but he's coming across more as a brute who is trying to enforce his will. Kind of an anagram of how America is sometimes described as. America is described as a brute that is forcing their ideals upon you, while Russia, that Superman, is resisting those brute ideas. That was also a nice little contrast and fight scene they had. Superman versus Bizarro. It was an entertaining fight scene, and seeing Bizarro overload and get destroyed because of Lex's ambition is also a good is also good as well to the story itself. So yeah, like there's a lot more to cover with this movie, but that's just pretty much, those are just my basic overall thoughts and certain things that I did enjoy and did not enjoy about this movie. Like overall, I thought Superman Red Sun is really really good. It's one of the best animated movies. It's one of the better animated movies to come out, and I am going to give it a solid 9. Uh, Actually, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Uh, though I do like Batman, I would have liked to see more. I would have liked to see Wonder Woman have more of a presence as being an actual bridge. Though she did have a, though she did have a good couple of key scenes, and she did have a good couple of fight scenes. The fight scenes with Superman versus the Green Lantern Corps is entertaining. The end scene with Lex and Superman teaming up is fun. The Superman Batman fight scene is good too, and their opposing conflict, because we see early in the movie that in the Gulag it was actually a young Batman who has it out for Superman for being forced to be in there. So I kind of like how that rivalry kind of like started as well. But yeah, fix those things, and this movie could have been at least a 9. I'm gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. It's worth the watch. I think it's really good. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Superman Red Sun. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.